The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. Welcome to Pediatric Perspectives, where we are looking at children's health challenges from a different perspective, one that includes critical thinking, one where we are not afraid to give you the honest truth. I am very excited about our guest today, Katherine Sigblad, the host of Moms Off the Record, and she is an incredible mom who's dealing with a lot of things that I think many of you who are watching may be dealing with. So we are going to cover, as a mom with a 3.5-year-old boy and a 1.5-year-old girl, they are unvaccinated. She's holistic in her approach. We're going to cover the issue that happens with hospitalization or not when you have an unvaccinated child, supporting kids through illness, how to lay a healthy foundation, whether to go to specialists. If we have time, we're going to cover parenting challenges, education, raising critical thinkers. We have plenty to discuss here in our 30 minutes or so. So welcome, Katherine. I'm so delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you again, Dr. Paul.
How did you become alternative and holistic, if you will? How did you choose not to vaccinate? How did that all come about?
Baby steps. It really started about 25 years ago when I was 10 years old. So I had a close family member, an uncle who lived with us. He was sort of like a mom to me, too, in addition to my mom. And he was the one who taught me about GMOs and the harms of antibiotics and cow's milk. And he was very crunchy, like OG Depression era crunchy. So that's what piqued my interest first, is like examining, why am I eating the junk at school? Like just when I was 11 years old, that's like what really kickstarted all of this, is the constant questioning of the status quo. Fast forward to when I was pregnant back in 2022, that's really when I started asking myself, like, why am I consenting to all of these interventions, and then seeing vaccines really as a medical product and intervention that really took me down the rabbit hole of your work and others. And I just haven't been able to stop asking questions since. It's kind of exhausting in a good way.
Wonderful. To our listeners, parents out there, guardians, and everybody who cares for kids, I love this. We have to keep asking questions and we have to try to really understand, which is a big part of this show and many other of the health freedom movement shows and podcasts and organizations. CHD TV is a great one, and their weekly online journal, The Defender. I would say if you have not subscribed to that, please do. I get it every day, and I'm just the quality of the articles written are next level. And referenced and all. So it's a searchable site. So make sure you are subscribed to the Defender. All right. Sorry for that little diversion, but I just wanted people to know about that. I find it such a great resource. Let's start with something that, I think it just brings actual fear to many parents of unvaccinated kids. And that is how to deal with possibly having to go to the hospital. And I think you have experience with this.
I do, yes. So both my kids are unvaccinated, not even a vitamin K shot. It's actually my daughter. So my second born, she's an HVAC baby. So for anyone who doesn't know what that acronym stands for, home birth after cesarean, but not just any home birth. I chose to have a very informed, very peaceful, unassisted home birth.
Wow.
So we did go the birth certificate route. But long story short, her first exposure to the hospital wasn't until she was just under 8 weeks old, because she wasn't even born in a hospital. Um, and I made a tough decision, but this is where maternal discernment comes into play. We cannot think dogmatically. It's really important that we may be aware that the Western allopathic model is not ideal as the first line of defense for every little cut or cold. However, there is a time and a place. And um, she had some really labored breathing that was concerning to me. And fortunately, because I asked the right questions and I network really well, I found an anti-vaccine medical freedom advocate. It's actually a pediatric physician's assistant. So she can do a lot of the things that the pediatricians can do, but she's not exactly a pediatrician. And she's also an herbalist, right? So having that resource in my back pocket, having those second set of eyes and ears, and she's a mom, to tell me, like, this is pretty concerning. We're going to do everything we can to manage these RSV-like symptoms, I'll call it, at home.
Mm-hmm.
But if there comes a point where breathing is really, really labored, it might be worthwhile just to have her monitored. And this was like a real last resort for me. So I'll tell you the things I did at home first. I did a lot of percussions on the back, which any mom can do.
So
C shape with my hand,
Yep.
and it's like really firm on the top of the back. That really did help. We did garlic
Mm-hmm.
steams too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you like to prescribe these, but just 5 cloves of garlic cut, because garlic is a very potent antiviral. And about 2 to 3 times a day over a pot on the stove where garlic cloves were steaming,
So
I
just
would have my
steaming
daughter
it.
inhale. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for like 20 minutes at a time. We did that. Rosemary, essential oil in a diffuser. Also, of course, co-sleeping, which I did anyway from day one, really helped with nervous system regulation and breathing. So these things helped. However, she was vomiting, not projectile, but vomiting a lot of mucus up.
Coughing to the point of vomiting, probably.
Yes, yep. And it
Yes.
was all mucus. So it was vomiting all the mucus. So I knew she was really backed up and she was wheezing. She had a viral rash. So here I am, like, ugh, I was hoping we'd be making more progress. We weren't. And I didn't want to chance it. Part of
Mm-hmm.
me felt kind of almost like ashamed, which is, I should not have felt any shame. I should have felt confident in my decision, but like, oh man, I have to outsource to the hospital. But we've done all this amazing work at home.
Right.
And I have to say, when all is said and done, I'm glad we went, if nothing else, but for the very, very high quality nose suctioning that they did, which suctioned so many liquid boogers from her,
Interesting.
which I would not have been able to do at home. So my biggest learning was, now we have the Dr. Nose Bot. We don't use like the little, cheapy Frida Mom nose suctioner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be more proactive with that. I feel bad because she had 1 round of IV antibiotics, and I knew that would change her gut microbiome for at least the next 2 years. So
During
we've
that
been,
hospitalization you're talking about?
yes, because
What was
they
her
ran.
oxygen, by the way? Do you
Oh,
remember?
that's
Did
a
she
great
require
question.
oxygen?
She did not.
Okay.
So she never had any steroids, like albuterol or anything, which was great. No prednisone. She, at home, I was just doing saline in a nebulizer, which was
Okay.
helpful. So they
And
ran
how
their
was her feeding at the time you took her to the hospital? Was she still feeding okay?
Thank goodness, yes. So
Okay.
exclusively breastfed from day one. I didn't have to pump. They did want me tracking like outputs and how long each feed was. So I stayed with her overnight in the ER. And I'll tell you, Dr. Paul, we had a very uncomfortable, unfortunate interaction with, I would say, just a newer doc fresh out of med school. You could tell probably hasn't seen too much yet. Maybe I was even older than this doctor. And she was like, of course, she went straight into shaming and lecture mode, and a little bit of
Mm,
fear mongering too, which just doesn't work on me because of what I know, thanks to your work, etc. So one of the first things she wanted to tell me when we were in the ER in triage was, well, this wouldn't have happened if you had
mm.
gotten her vaccinated, right? So cliche.
How did you respond to that?
Yeah, my blood was kind of boiling, but also I was just kind of annoyed. I was like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about. But the thing is, when you're in mama bear kind of fear paralysis protective mode, I just wanted to be like, okay, thank you, next. Like, let's get the real doctor in here. What I actually did was I didn't agree with her. I didn't kowtow and say, you're right, or I'm sorry. I also didn't combat it because I knew she's set in her ways.
Hmm.
And this is not a time
Not the
to
time
have
to
a
try to
debate.
change and educate someone who's not even open to being educated.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I just said, okay, thank you for your opinion. Moving on. So, what are we going to do in terms of monitoring for her here? How are we going to get her better now? You
Awesome.
know? Yeah. So, just standing my ground, not apologizing, not debating. Um, Now, yeah, interestingly, though, so they ran their first line of tests. And apparently, this is a common thing. Maybe you know a little bit about this. Some tests are a little bit hypersensitive to picking things up that might not be there. So they thought she had a UTI. Turns out she
Oh
didn't.
dear.
And so, because they thought that, that's why they preemptively were like, let's give her a round of IV antibiotics.
How
And
did
I'm
they
like,
get that urine sample, by the way?
yeah, the good question. Now it's like,
They either
it
put a
was
bag on her or they catheterized her or they
they
stuck a
did
needle right through her abdomen into the bladder.
they catheterized her. Now I remember it,
Okay.
which honestly, that was the most traumatic thing. I did step out of the room for that. I let my husband stay there.
Yeah.
Um, I just couldn't watch that. And so I was so pissed off when the other doctor the next day told me, oh, by the way, turns out she didn't have a UTI. So she got those antibiotics for nothing. But I'll tell your listeners what I did for like several months after that, what we're
Did she
still
have
doing
a
today.
fever, by the way? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah. No, she did not.
She did not. Okay. And she was 2 months old.
Yeah, just under 2 months old.
I only ask those questions just to highlight this piece of information for our viewers. I was a pediatrician for about 35 years, and there's something called a septic workup, which happens when you're 2 months or younger and you have a real fever. But some docs will try to do most of the septic workup for ages under 2 months, even if they don't have a fever, but they're sick, right? So they probably
Yes.
did blood cultures. That's why they got the urine. They might have got a chest x-ray. Hopefully they didn't, but they might
No.
have done a lumbar puncture, which is looking for meningitis.
Fortunately, they didn't. They
Okay.
did socialize that as an option. They
Hmm.
didn't do it maybe because she didn't have the fever, but ultimately, here's what the kicker was. This is why we decided to go in. That like sort of anti-vaccine pediatric physician assistant I told you about, we had some testing done in her office a few days prior, and it came
Mm,
back positive for a lot. It looked like she had croup, RSV, like a lot of things. But I'm also here's the challenging thing. I'm aware that these tests can have false positives, false negatives, and then what about the results a few days later? I still just was like, you know what? If I'm going to be by her side the whole time, we can just monitor her. We can be by oxygen if she needs it. That's okay with me. Like, that's an okay intervention if she needs oxygen. Um, and so I don't have any regret or guilt over that. I'm glad we went, but I've been in the process of healing and sealing her gut mainly through the GAPS diet and a lot of just meat stock, meat off the bone, ferments that I make from home. And she's been thriving.
wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that experience. I think a few keys that you mentioned were, you went in confident of your choices. You weren't going to be bullied. You made that decision. You never left your daughter's side, which is a key point. Never, ever leave a loved one in the hospital alone. So how long was
Yeah.
she in the hospital, and how long did it take her to get better?
Fortunately, only one night, and she was significantly better a few days later. It did make me realize in hindsight, they probably did a lot of what they did out of an abundance of caution, probably due
Hmm.
to her age, I would
Hmm.
guess.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and so I'm glad it was just one night. And you're right, that's the key thing. I would never ever leave her. She was basically glued to me. I was even trying to co-sleep with her in the bed. And of course, when the nurses would pop in, they're like, we really can't let you do that. So then I'd like put her in her little bassinet, okay, and then put her right back on top of me. I'm like, I'm a pro at co-sleeping. I've been doing this for 3.5 years. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Right. And if you've been going to a traditional pediatrician, you've probably been warned against co-sleeping. It turns out you said it perfectly. You want to have your child be calm. That is one of the most important things for RSV infants is if they get agitated, it makes them way worse. They start coughing, they start panicking, and then you think they're in trouble. It's just the mucus. And usually the
Yes.
only time you need to go to a hospital is if they need oxygen or they're not able to keep fluids down. They're getting dehydrated. Or in your case, you were right on that edge, and it was just like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to have more information. So you went in to get more information. You ruled out serious infection. You kind of had already figured out it was RSV. Could have been RSV plus some other things. It is possible to have more than one infection at a time. It's not typical, but it is possible. And it sounds like you didn't have a pulse oximeter at home, and it's hard to get a good pulse ox on a 2-month-old anyway.
Yes. Yeah, that
Yep.
is very true. I remember it was on the lower side, but it wasn't like dangerously low, but it was,
Yeah.
let's keep an eye on this
Yeah. And
borderline.
I think it was really helpful just to point out to our listeners, having a trusted healthcare provider in your pocket, on your team, that you had that person you could go to. And yes, they can be a PA, they can be a nurse practitioner, they could even be a naturopath, chiropractor, any alternative person who's really grounded, right? I mean, they're not just out there. They know kids, right? It does take knowing kids. When kids get sick enough that they're possibly needing to be hospitalized, you want somebody who's seen sick kids because they can
Yes.
really help you discern, is it time now? In my situation, do I need to go to the hospital? Because it's no fun, right? You knew that. You were going in knowing you were going to get something.
Oh, yeah. And one of my litmus test questions I have for providers is, are you familiar with Dr. Thomas's work and what do you think of it? And as soon as she told me she's a fan of your book, but she didn't read the most recent one yet, I was like, oh, you got to check it out. And that's one of the ways I knew I could trust her guidance when she said, Kat, I do think it would be beneficial for you to take Lucy in, given the test results, how she's looking, how she's sounding,
Right.
all of it combined, right? So it's not so black and white. Again,
And
discernment. If it was someone who was really captured in the medical system and like super
mhm,
scared of everything,
mhm.
very pro vaccine, I probably would have second guessed that second opinion a lot.
Yeah, and you should have. Did your provider see your 2-month-old in person or on video, or was it just a phone call?
In person twice, and we did testing
Perfect.
with her.
So I
Yes.
wanted to make that clear. If you call a provider, even one who is aware of all the things we're talking about here, but it's just a phone call, and you start describing as a parent, I've got a 2-month-old or almost 2-month-old, and they're starting to cough all the time, coughing to the point of vomiting, and I'm worried. They're going to send you to the hospital, period. If
Yes.
if I can see that baby, and I don't diagnose or treat, I'm retired, but just speaking of, if a provider can see that baby, if they have experience with really sick kids, they will know almost in an instant by looking at what's going on, the state of alertness, the state of hydration, the state of how fast they're breathing, how labored their breathing is. Can they still drink? So there are a lot of things a person can look at that as a parent you might want a second opinion when it's getting borderline, which is exactly what you did. So perfect. Awesome job. And you had a son who you had to send to school, but he was unvaccinated. And what state were you in?
Fortunately, Florida, the medical freedom state. So I'll be
Okay.
honest. I know there might be some envy right now amidst your listeners. It's quite easy to get an exemption where I live. I
Yeah.
don't take it for granted. I'm very, very grateful. Yeah, we had a religious exemption. I got no pushback, and then we ended up getting a medical exemption from a different anti-vaccine doctor, which was great. And yeah, so we send them to school. But I think this is the thing I'd love for your listeners to know. Their vaccine shedding is real. We all know this. However, I encounter in my circles a lot of moms who are scared about sending their kids to school because of the possibility of shedding. Where my mindset is I don't want to come from a place of fear and I don't
Good.
want to live in a bubble. I
Yep.
really do believe that when we set a healthy foundation with sunshine, rest, happy, authentic human connections in person, and of course, food, that when we do encounter sickness of any sort, we're more resilient. It's less
Hmm.
intense. And
Yes.
the benefits of him being in this amazing, I'm not going to call it like a totally alternative preschool, but it's not mainstream, with fostering great connections. The benefits for him outweigh any potential risk of him being shed on. And he's been there since he was 18 months old. He's now 3.5.
Hmm.
And aside from like one stomach bug in that time, which went around with all the kids anyway. Ironically, he got chicken pox. A pediatrician we saw, who's very much on our wavelength, said this looks like an atypical case of varicella that occurs when someone who got the vaccine sheds it onto someone else because it lasted 3 months.
Wow. Yes. So just, and if you have information that will add to this, I'm open to it, absolutely. But just for clarity, not all vaccines shed, but
Right.
for sure the live vaccines do, which is measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox, the varicella that you're talking about. Rotavirus, which is what your son got probably in daycare, after when he around 18 months or whatever time he was, that there's a live virus oral drops of rotavirus, and that absolutely is shed. And so if toddlers are sticking things in their mouths, dropping it, and the next kid comes along and puts that in their mouth, they just got it. So rotavirus and other enteral infections, vomiting, diarrhea, illnesses will shed like crazy and spread like crazy. And of course, the COVID jab we know sheds. Hopefully, very few kids are getting that. No kid should get it. No human being should get that shot, actually.
Just to clarify, so I don't know what the GI bug was that he got, but when he got chickenpox, he was just over 2. And it was indeed chickenpox. Like, so we took him to the pediatric physician assistant I mentioned, but we also took him to this other doctor who's a family physician MD who's been in practice for, I don't know, 40 or 50 years. And he's had like everything himself naturally, measles, mumps, chicken pox, you name it, like grew up on a farm. And he examined him because I was like, is this chicken pox going on now for 3 months? He, of course, wasn't contagious all 3 months, but he's like, yeah, this is chicken pox. And it looks like an atypical type of varicella that he's seen in kids who are unvaccinated, but they're getting it from someone else. Have you heard of this before, Dr. Paul?
Oh, absolutely. The same is true for measles, which also you can catch from a vaccinated person. We know there's a very significant rate of measles rashes from kids who've gotten the MMR vaccine, and they typically happen around 2 weeks after the MMR shot. And so, yeah, if you're expressing a rash, that's a live virus measles strain. That's the whole dilemma with measles these days, that they keep reporting these outbreaks, but they're not serotyping to see whether the measles is actually wild measles or is this just vaccine shedding that's causing the problem. Anyway,
Yeah.
in the little bit of time we've got left, I want to hit a couple key things that you've touched on, so many beautiful things. Comment, if you will, on parenting challenges with unvaccinated kids. I wasn't aware they were special and unique, the challenges you might have.
Parenting challenges with unvaccinated kids. Just, I think this boils back to we all say we want more of a village and we're longing for community, but then maybe we're being too particular about the moms that we want to invite into our circles. And I think that we just need to be aware that it's impossible to agree with everyone on every single topic, especially vaccines.
Mm,
So sometimes it's better to just not go down that rabbit hole at all, and to talk about other things,
yep.
keep the
So,
peace.
so you're right. You're speaking to, I think, this issue where I've heard a ton of stories of parents with unvaccinated kids being excluded from play groups, being excluded from other play dates, whatever,
Yeah.
because your unvaccinated child is a danger to my vaccinated kid. Is that what you're referring to, sort of?
Yes. Now, I have friends who go through exactly what you're talking about. So I hear all of these stories often. And I think it has to do a little bit with your zip code, maybe. For me, I have to be honest, I was shocked. I revealed to a couple of mom friends whose kids are in my son's class. One of them, I'm positive, vaccinates on the schedule to a T. And it had to come up in conversation when Julian was on his like 3rd month of chickenpox, and he's being sent to school. He looks like he has chickenpox, but I got a doctor's note he wasn't contagious. So it's sort of like this big elephant in the room, like, like why did he get it? And I just said very matter of factly, like, yeah, it's funny how even the vaccinated can give this to the unvaccinated, right? Because it's a live virus that sheds. When you say it so nonchalantly and matter of factly, you actually get people to kind of pause, right? They're not keyboard
Hmm.
warriors in real life. They sort of pause and they're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, I think that absolutely for most people, parenting challenges exist depending on
Hmm.
your geography, your ideologies. We do have a somewhat easier time here in Florida, fortunately, but we're moving to Sweden. So I'm sure it's going to be quite different there. Who knows?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to touch base after you've been in Sweden a while.
Yeah.
So I have one other topic that I wanted your input on, and that is keys to raising children who are critical thinkers.
Okay. Encourage question asking, open ended questions, right? We don't want to just take things for face value. Start young. There's always an age appropriate way to do things. We love the Tuttle Twins and Brave books in terms of literature for young children,
Mm,
breaking down concepts simply. Whenever we see something in the wild or an interaction that we wouldn't do at home, we can say, different family, different rules. And in private, we can talk about, like, why do we do things this way? Right? And how does this make us feel? Why may other families choose something differently?
hmm.
The old school way is children should be seen and not heard, right? We don't want to ask questions. There's an
Right.
hierarchy here. You need to respect
Mm,
authority blindly. But if we're teaching to respect authority blindly, how are we raising critical thinkers?
good point. Excellent point. I'll give you an example of what I
Oh man.
did, which is not a good idea. So my kids would come home from school. I'd say, "How was school?"
Oh, right, right, right.
Fine. And that was always the answer. And yeah, I just didn't know what to do with it. I was not skilled at getting a dialogue going, which I
It's
wished I had.
tricky.
Yeah.
It can be tricky. That's every parent's favorite go-to question. And of course, it's the quickest way to shut down the conversation with a
Right.
good,
Right. Right.
fine. Yeah, I think it's more like let them decompress first. That's what I've learned.
Mm,
Okay, after a long day, let them decompress, let them come to you a little bit, do an activity together, get really into like deep play, and then say, tell me more about, or why did you choose X, Y, and Z? So,
hmm
like, they do something called the question of the day in their class, and it could be any random silly thing. And I'll be like, oh, tell me more about that. Like, why did you say X, Y, and Z? They
hmm
love to, especially after 3 years old and individuation hits, they realize they're separate from you. They love to kind of find their own personality and their why and prove their point. So I just let him kind of take the stage and foster that personality development that way.
Fantastic. Well, I really want to thank you, Katherine. This has been a fun episode. You've covered a lot of really important topics. You have your own podcast. Maybe if you could share two things. One is how people can interact with you or connect with you and your podcast, for example. And then also any final thoughts that you wanted to add for our viewers for this episode.
Yes, I'll answer in reverse order. And thank you so
Mhm.
much for having me. A couple other things I wanted to add. St. John's wort oil applied topically is fantastic for any kind of like herpes or zoster virus in terms of healing without suppressing the symptoms. You don't want to suppress it, so just healing. St. John's wort oil, not just for depression. Also, baking soda baths. Great. You can subscribe to Moms Off the Record podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. Come find me on Instagram at Moms Off the Record Pod. We have a flourishing private community of dozens of women from around the world who are seeking other like minded women for support and solidarity in all phases of motherhood. You can book a potty training consult with me as well. I'm sure you'll be provided all the links. But yeah, mainly it's the podcast. We're also on YouTube. So yeah, come check it out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Katherine. It was really a pleasure to have you on the show. Folks, those of you who want to connect with myself or my partner, Dee Dee Hoover, you can go to kidsfirstforever.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
My name is Sidney Broussard.
And this is about your wife. Take us right back. Tell us all about it.
My wife worked for the state of California. She worked for the Lancaster State Prison, and then they told her, she went to a bloodborne pathogens class, and they basically lied to her, and they told her to take the hepatitis B vaccine. That was going to protect her and the prisoners. And she went to a bloodborne pathogen class where they had experienced nurses, and they never told them that there were side effects with it. But they made her believe that it was required to take the vaccine, and it wasn't. So she did what they told her to do, and she wound up getting paralyzed from the hepatitis B vaccine. She wound up getting transverse myelitis and neuromyelitis optica.
And did the doctors acknowledge at any point that this was from the vaccine?
No, they didn't want to acknowledge it at all.
So what did they say caused her to get these things?
They said it was idiopathic, and I asked what was idiopathic. They said unknown causes, and that set me into orbit. Because here I've been married to my wife for 25 years at the time, and healthy, and now she's paralyzed. It didn't make no sense to me. One day, I think it was a nurse, she came in and she ran in, she gave me this little envelope, this little package, and I didn't know, and then she just bolted right out the door. And I started reading it, and it was staggering. It was the vaccine insert, and it said some of the things that my wife was experiencing. I confronted the neurologist, and then he said, "Oh no, Mr. Broussard, it can't possibly be that." But yes, it was. They lied. They lied, and my wife became paralyzed from the chest down. And me and my daughter had to take care of my wife for the past 6 years until she died January 2021 of last year, 23.
So it could destroyed her life. It destroyed all of your lives.
We were
Her
a full
daughter
time.
is sitting just off camera here.
Yes,
She's very beautiful.
Yes, yes. We were her full-time caregivers. Thank you. She's a reminiscence of, when I look at her, I see my wife.
That's right.
And it hurts when I see her, but I love her. So losing my wife, and I think I tried to cry myself out, and it seemed like every time I start talking about Dana, I start crying again because I loved her so much. She was our foundation, and it was broken because of lies. So she became the first person in the nation, what was reported, she became the first person in the nation to win a vaccine injury case against workers' comp. She beat the entire state of California. And even though the attorneys wanted to settle, I think 2 or 3 times the lawyer said the attorneys wanted to settle, whoever the client was for the state of California never wanted to settle. Because I guess they wanted to wait her out because they knew she was going to die sooner or later. So it was cheaper to wait her out. Just wait it out. Eventually she's going to die. And that's what they did. They murdered my wife. They all murdered my wife. From beginning to end, they said, oh, it's safe and effective. No, you lied. You lied. Anytime a doctor or nurse practitioner or anybody that says this or any vaccine is safe and effective, they all lied. They should be convicted of murder, homicide. They should go to jail. They should go to prison because you took something away from my family that can't be replaced. And you're taking away from other families that can't be replaced. So I'm tired of all the lies. I'm tired of all the censorship. It's not benefiting us. It's always benefiting the people that it's profited from. It's not benefiting my daughter. It's not benefited me. So she won the case against the state of California, and we're still in the case for the vaccine injury court. So we have a court system that is not set up for the benefit of the vaccine injured. It is not, because what they do also, it takes years before they even make a decision whether or not you win or lose. And then even if you win, it's not very much. And if you lose, you don't get nothing. You're supposed to have speedy justice. If they would have gave my wife the compensation that she needed for the care that she needed, my wife would be alive today. But you took that away from me. You took it away. The government. And I can't believe the government that I sworn to protect when I was in the military, I swore to protect. Y'all did this to me and my family. So you must hold your head high every night while the vaccine injured is crying every day because their children, their wives, their husbands are damaged. And I can't say they're injured, they're damaged for life. And then guess who has to take care of them? We do. We do. We have to take care of them. I lost something that was special to me that I can never take back. And you can't give it to me. So my story is, I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of being sad. And now I'm angry. I'm angry with the politicians. I'm angry with, there's a few politicians that have been speaking out. You have Mr. Johnson, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You have Bobby Kennedy has been speaking out on vaccine injuries for years. And still, we've been censored. Heck, Bobby Kennedy is running for the president of the United States, and he's been censored. I'm trying to keep everything together the best way I can. And I'm not perfect. Because when your wife dies, there's no book on how to survive after that. You do the best you can. And that's all I'm doing is the best I can. And I lost everything because of it. So I'm hoping they all hold their heads high for the damage that they've done. Because if you ignore the vaccine injury, if you ignore what's right there in front of your face and say, oh no, it's just a coincidence, it's not. It is not, because you censored doctors. You censored people that want to come out and tell the truth of what's going on with these vaccines. You got people scared to tell the truth because they're afraid of their livelihoods. You don't have no morals. You don't. You have nothing that you can give the American people. You have nothing that you can give the world. You have to come out and start speaking the truth. We all have to come out and say enough is enough. When is this going to be enough? When are you going to just finally come together and say, wait a minute, I can't do this no more. I have to speak out and tell the truth. We're dependent on you, doctors, scientists, lawyers, everybody. We need to tell the truth. Congress people, stop being so decisive and divisioned. We have to tell the truth and start making a reckoning for all the damage that's been done. Look around for what you're doing. I'm not the only family that you destroyed. There's millions. Now you got COVID. Right now, we are in a war for health. And you haven't even seen the magnitude of destruction that you've done because of profits. We need to stop this. We need to stop all the corruption in the government and start working for the people. Let's work for these vaccine injured. Let's work for these children that have been vaccine injured for years before COVID. And now since COVID came out, a lot of people are starting to open up their eyes, and they're starting to see the ones that are voting for bills and against bills. Now I'm angry. I shouldn't have lost my wife. I planned to be with her until we were like in our 90s or 100s. And you took that away from me. I'm just one of millions. But you don't hear about these stories because of the censorship. You need to see. I just left Congressman Mike Garcia's office and I asked him to go and visit a vaccine injured person. Because once you visit one, you're going to understand how it impacted that little child or that husband or that wife. And you're going to know what troubles they're going through because of a vaccine injury. When you're vaccine injured, it's a whole household that has to take care of that person. It's not one. You done ruined everybody in that household because now that household has to take care of and concentrate on that vaccine injured. You have to start doing something to rectify this situation. If you don't, it's going to get worse. Right now, I can't imagine the millions of people worldwide that are vaccine injured. I was kind of blessed to have a decent job, to take care of my wife. But what about all the others that didn't? So please, if you can find it in your heart to start meeting in the middle with everybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, we all need to work together because this is a united problem. It's not a separate issue. It is a united problem that affects everybody. And let me tell you another thing. Vaccines don't discriminate. It doesn't. Young, old, men, women, children, it doesn't discriminate. When you're injured, you're injured. And it's not really injured, you're damaged. So my story is, my family is destroyed because of it. Because you took away the foundation. And I have a beautiful daughter that lost her mother. And I have a grandson that lost his grandmother. And that can't be replaced. A mother is the foundation of the household. A mother is the foundation. When you've broken that, it's done. My foundation is broken. And I'm trying to rebuild it the best way I can. And I don't even know if I can do that. Because the person that took care of everything that was strong, you took her from me. And who I'm talking about took her from me? Doctors that lied. The politicians, the greedy politicians that decided to take money from the pharmaceutical companies instead of just saying, wait a minute, we need to work for the people. We need to have an open and honest discussion about this. We need congressional hearings and hold people accountable. I'm not talking about finding them. I'm talking about they need to go to prison. Every last one of them need to go to prison. This is murder. There's nothing else. You injure somebody and you don't tell them the truth. There's all kind of crimes that has been committed. So you need to go to prison. Each and every one of you. Every single one of you. I don't care who you are or what political affiliation you have. Y'all need to go to prison. And if it's my last breath, I'm going to make sure of it. I will be in congressional hearings. I will be wherever they want me to be. And I'm going to make sure you are held accountable. So the people that knows that these are damaging kids, stop it. Tell the truth. Say, yes, there is a possibility that this could possibly happen, and let that parent or that individual make an informed decision on their own health. Stop trying to be God. Nobody's God. So please stop it. Tell the truth. And please, doctors, lawyers, help me, help Del Bigtree, help Bobby Kennedy, help them all to hold these people accountable for a change. Because this is mass murder. There's nothing else. And the Vaccine Injury Court, please make your decisions timely and stop wasting everybody's time, because there's thousands of people that's on this list that need help now, not later, not years later. My wife is still in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Court system, and it's been a little over 7 years now. Almost 8 years now. I'm sorry, I'm talking to my daughter. It is not speedy justice. So make it happen. I'd like to thank Polly for allowing me to speak, because I swear to God, I think I'm going a whole different direction right now. I want to thank Bobby Kennedy. I want to thank Del Bigtree for a wonderful interview that you did with my wife and my daughter. You were excellent on that interview, and you showed so much compassion and love, and I really appreciated it. Mr. Kennedy, I respect you so much, and thank you for all that you've been doing to help expose and hold people accountable for the actions that they did, for all the damages they've done to all these vaccine injured individuals, the families. And I'm hoping that my wife, Dana Broussard, will never be forgotten. Never. Log on to Del Bigtree's The High Wire and look at my wife, Dana Broussard, and look at her story. Listen to my wife, please. But don't ever forget my wife or any of the other vaccine injured, because they're the ones suffering. Please. That's all I'm asking.